Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast this week in America. Great to have you with us on the program today. All the information on the program and today's guest available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Robert Gallant has written 5 novels. He has over 30 years of experience in business and technology. He's been with us to discuss Satan's Stronghold and most recently Rob the Vatican. Robert Gallant back with us on This Week in America. Robert, welcome back to the program. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, Rick. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk with you again.
It is always fun to talk about the excellent books that you have written. This one is called Jericho's Trumpet. This is a follow-up to Satan's Stronghold, and I'll mention the 2 books that we talked about before, Satan's Stronghold and Rob the Vatican. If you go to thisweekinamerica.us and go to YouTube, go to iTunes, you can listen and watch our interviews and talking about those. Jericho's Trumpet, this really is an ideal follow-up to Satan's Stronghold, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I was very excited over it because I said, oh, this just fits perfectly with Chesney Barrett, the female protagonist who is so good in Satan's Stronghold, and then for Travis Weld, the government agent. It's right up their alley.
Yeah, with the book Jericho's Trumpet, environmental graduate student Chesney Barrett is recruited by government agent Travis Weld to infiltrate a group of environmentalists. Okay, you've got my attention. Throw in a couple of nuclear bombs and you really have my attention. This is an excellent suspense thriller. Before we start talking about the book and the process that you went through to write it, let's talk briefly about the 2 main characters. Let's talk about Chesney because, and we've mentioned this before, this is a really strong woman molded by your wife who did a critique that was like, you need to make her a little stronger and really change the character. Give me some background on Chesney because we do follow her throughout your books.
As Chesney was a collegiate swimming champion, she had dominated college swimming. She went to the U.S. trials, completely dominated that, and was expected, well, she's going to go to the Olympics and she's going to win a whole group of gold medals. And her mother picked her up at the airport. They were on their way home, and a drug dealer fleeing from the police smashed into their car, killed her mother, and put her in the hospital. So she ended up in the hospital watching the Olympics rather than competing. And although she recovered fine physically, totally, she has anger over what was taken away from her and how unfair that was. So back on Satan's Stronghold, when Travis Weld came to her and said, I want you to help us find this drug dealer's factory hidden somewhere in the Louisiana swamps because you're doing environmental work there. You have a reason to wander around in the swamps. And she said yes, even though she knew, well, hey, I could get killed. But for her, it was, I'm going to make sure that this drug dealer does not do to somebody else what that drug dealer did to me. So that gave her the incentive to get into it. And she also is a very smart, very quick-witted person who can outthink almost anybody she deals with. And thanks to the training that Travis Weld gave her, she can outfight most people. As Travis Weld told her, boy, not only do you have magnificent legs, you could kill people with those legs. Because she had such strong, fast, mobile legs.
And you can find that story in the first book that Robert wrote called Satan's Stronghold. Information available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Book available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon. It's an excellent read. Now we sort of shift things to the new book, Jericho's Trumpet. And the thing with Chesney that is so interesting, she's really good at this spy espionage thing, isn't she? I mean, she sort of found like, okay, this is like the new her now. Very good. We're showing right now in the TV version a picture of the cover, and we've got Chesney and we've got Travis. Chesney is such a dominant character, and I love the picture. Here's this very dominant-looking woman on the cover. How did you come up with this picture of her, this drawing?
Just the feeling that, well, she fits in so well to Travis. Travis Weld is an entirely different person. He's his feeling is, well, the best thing you can do to any terrorist or any drug dealer is just shoot them between the eyes. You don't want to take them back for trial or anything else. And he's so determined that he can even say, well, you don't even want to, you'll have to be willing to sacrifice innocent people to make sure you get them. Chesney is the opposite. Yeah, she wants to see the bad guys all gone, but she's going to fight hard to protect the innocent people, even if it endangers her. So they clash over this point. But essentially, Travis Weld is Dirty Harry with a real good knowledge of computers and the ability to be like a James Bond when he chooses to be. So he's quite a combination.
Yes, and in the book, Jericho's Trumpet, he kills a former KGB officer who was trying to smuggle some bombs into the country, and he actually got one here, and Chesney is out there trying to figure out exactly where it is. She really gets herself in a predicament, too, doesn't she? She's playing up both sides of this.
Yes, for her, when the interesting thing is, Travis Weld said, we don't have any clues as to who has that other bomb. And she kind of sorted through some of the information and said, I think I know how to figure it out. And they all kind of said, you can't possibly figure it out from that. And comes back one day and says, okay, here's the guy who is tied into this some way. And he's in the middle of a protest that he's leading. He's an environmental leader. But I think the owner of the bomb is going to show up at that place. And so she takes advantage of the fact, well, she's a very highly regarded environmentalist. So if she gets into the middle of a protest and starts working with environmentalists, they're going to welcome her with open arms, especially as sexy as she is. So she does a great job of infiltrating groups, convincing them, I am with you, I want to help you, how can I help you out? And all the time, she's a sly fox who's checking out every possible clue and sorting out who can be an ally and who potentially is the enemy.
Yeah, I mentioned this is a suspense thriller. You've got all that element of work with Chesney, because if either side finds out she's also working with the other side, she's pretty well history at that point, isn't she?
That's right. In fact, Travis, told her, well, you realize that you can't trust those people, because if you trust the wrong person, you're dead. So.
Yeah, and at stake here is this nuclear bomb. Stuart Kramer and Brian Forsyth are two of the other characters. Very briefly, who are these people and how do they play into this?
Yes. Brian Forsyth is an environmental leader, and he has come in and become the key person in a protest against a refinery that wants to expand its operations. It's located on Mississippi River north of New Orleans, and people are protesting saying, that's bad. I mean, you're already doing bad pollution problems. And he is a very shrewd, great speaker. He can get up and just captivate a group, and he captivates women too. So he's a very important character, and she very quickly befriends him and seduces him, because that gives her access to more of what he's doing. In fact, because of that, him simply taking a telephone call while she was in the room and telling somebody, well, I'll have to get back to you later, everything, da. And she memorized what he said, told Weld went into the telephone system, pulled out the conversation between the two of them, and said, oh, Brian Forsyth, an eco-radical, his role generally is to come to these protests and escalate them dramatically in violence, whether it's an economic conference or whether it's environmental, he's probably the guy with the bomb. So now she has to befriend this guy too, because she can't tell Brian, because if Brian already knows, then she's dead. So she's got to try to maneuver him around so she can figure out what is your target, probably the refinery, where is the bomb, and how do I convince you I could be real valuable to you.
This is all in the new suspense thriller from Robert Gallant. It's called Jericho's Trumpet. It's a follow-up to Satan's Stronghold. The book's available all across the country. Stuart Kramer, this guy leads an environmental group. She's befriending him as well. And again, if either finds out that she's also working with the other side, it could be the end for her. And then with all of that, you mentioned Travis before, that sometimes is less than patient. And if he really has his way, she's afraid they're going to end up both getting killed.
Right, because he's saying, well, hey, if you don't very quickly find out where that bomb is, I'm going to have to go in and kill a batch of people so they can't use it. And so it is difficult to work with him some of the time, but you have to give him credit. You kind of got to root for him, because you kind of feel the same way. Why let a really bad guy walk away? And he never allows that to happen.
That's what's so interesting as you're reading your books. In this particular case, Jericho's Trumpet, it's like, well, he shouldn't be doing that. But on the other hand, why not? These are bad people. What he's attempting to do is for everybody's benefit. So why not? Take that little gray area there. May not even be gray. Take that area, and who's going to know? It's in Jericho's Trumpet. In the time left we have in the program, I would, and we're going to have you read a short page here in just a few minutes, but I want to talk about the background, why you did this, because besides being a suspense thriller, it's an excellent read. It also has some controversial and little-known environmental issues that you're dealing with. Talk about why you decided to write the book with this particular storyline.
Well, it's very interesting. I read a news report, and for the first time, I heard, wow, they're saying that when the United States made the agreement with the Russians to dispose of significant amounts of their nuclear weapons, the Russians had a suitcase-sized nuclear bomb that they had developed. And the United States said, you've got to destroy all of those. And the Russians said, yeah, because the risk of a terrorist getting a hold of it would really be bad. I mean, they can carry a nuclear weapon around in a suitcase and put it where they want it. So I thought, wow, okay, suppose, though, that a terrorist did get a hold of this. How would we find them? How would we track them down? How would we stop them? And at the same time, I've been working on a plot of something that very few people realize is the Mississippi River changes course historically about every 400 years. And it's been wanting to do that for about the last 50 years. But the United States came in, the government came in, and they built a dam to block it. Because what happens is the Mississippi River keeps dumping material out into the Gulf. It builds up a delta. The river has to get higher and higher to get around it. And finally, the river just breaks through and goes another direction and shows up in the Gulf about 50 to 100 miles somewhere else. So this is in the midst, then, controversial, because environmentalists are saying, well, by blocking the natural flow into the swamplands in order to keep the Mississippi River with enough flow that big ships can come up and down it, you're starving during the warm seasons. You're starving that swamp, and the swamp is slowly deteriorating, and the coastline is eroding away. And of course, the government is saying, well, if we do that, the Mississippi River will become just a big pond sitting out there that ships can't come up and down. And that economically would be terrible. So so this dispute is going on, and it's a very realistic, real question. How do we deal with this? And that's one of the things that Chesney Barrett is studying. Well, what can we do to keep this from happening? So I remembered what one of my professors said in college, and he said, cataclysms sometimes occur because two unrelated things collide. And I thought, okay, we've got the battle between environmentalists and business people and government over this environmental key thing of the swamp. And then we've got someone running around with a nuclear bomb who's going to take advantage of that and use it somewhere. So any time you have a nuclear bomb, whatever it collides with, it's going to be a cataclysm. So I said, what a combination. I have to have a real adventuresome story, perfect for Chesney Barrett and Travis Weld, but I'll also be able to educate people on, hey, this is a really major, serious concern environmentally that we're struggling with.
That's what's so nice about Jericho's Trumpet is the fact that it's entertaining. It's an excellent suspense thriller, very well written, and gets you thinking at the same time. Our guest on the program, Robert Gallant. This is a follow-up to Satan's Stronghold. It's called Jericho's Trumpet. It's available all across the country. Information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You can link on and get information on the book. As so many of your books, as I'm reading them, I can actually see what you're writing. And reading the reviews, descriptions of Chesney's bayou life, vibrant, action scenes exceptional. What's really interesting is how well and rich this is written. Does that go back to what the almost 28 years you spent in Louisiana? You really have a very good grasp on what that area is like there and the culture, the bayou culture.
Yeah, actually, this story is almost as though, hey, I went through this as a person. I dealt with environmental groups. I dealt with businesses. I dealt with floods on the Mississippi River. In fact, I was the leader of a task force for my corporation in which we brought in experts on what do you do if you end up with a hostage situation or a takeover or a completely out of control protest. And so how do you deal with it? And these guys didn't just come in and say, here's the book to read. They walked in, they said, okay, the time just started. You have a hostage situation at one of your manufacturing sites just took place. And we were in real time for the next 3.5 days. It wasn't like you quit and went home and slept.
Right.
It was absolutely wearing.
As all of this was unfolding, did you have any idea that I'm going to write books and boy, this would make a great storyline? I'm sure you were preoccupied at the time, but in the back of your mind, were you thinking this really is a good book?
Yeah, I had already thought of, if since I invented Chesney Barrett, she could get in on this protest that's taking place. And then when I read about the nuclear bomb, I said, oh boy, we just moved from this is kind of a serious situation to, oh wow, this is really serious. So it was beautiful. I loved it. It was the easiest one I've ever written because one, I didn't have to do much research. I had lived all these things. I had talked and visited and interfaced with environmentalists, with government officials. I've gone through this thing of what do you do when you got a hostage type situation. I had dealt with, boy, the Mississippi River is so high. There's a real risk of major flooding, How do we deal with that with our production plant that's sitting right there on the Mississippi? So I got to say, this was the most fun one to write because I felt like I'm almost living and breathing, except fortunately I never had to deal with a nuclear bomb.
Well, yes, and it unfolds beautifully in Jericho's Trumpet. A couple minutes left in the program. Robert, you've got on page 75, there's a great scene there. It's a telephone conversation between Chesney and Travis. Read us a little bit from that. This will give us a feel for the characters and how they're going about taking care of this problem.
Yes, this is after Chesney Barrett had overheard this telephone conversation by the guy contacted Travis Weld, and Travis Weld is contacting her back later, and he's saying to Chesney, "We have a match on the mystery caller to your environmental protest leader, Stuart Kramer. His name is Brian Forsyth, an eco-radical who specializes in creating violent disruptions at global economic conferences and environmental protests. He's a physical match with what that girl told you. I think Forsyth is the man with the stolen nuclear bomb, and the Titan Petroleum Refinery is his target. 20,000 people live around that plant. If the explosion takes out the Mississippi River levee, the floodwater surge will inundate everything on the west side all the way to New Orleans. But this bastard doesn't care. You can't warn Kramer because if he already knows, you're dead. In fact, if Forsyth gets even vaguely suspicious, he will kill you."
Wow, that it's all in the book Jericho's Trumpet. Minute or so left here. This has to be made into a movie. I see this as I'm reading it. If it is made into a movie, who do you see as Chesney? Because this is a really strong female character.
Jennifer Lawrence obviously would be great for it. Blake Lively or Charlize Theron, and I can't pronounce her name properly. It's Gal Gadot, or anyway, she plays Wonder Woman in the.
Oh, yes.
Any of those, because they're all four of those women. They're tall like Chesney. They're beautiful like Chesney, and they're very physically capable. They can handle things real well. So I just drew over the thought of any one of those four playing Chesney.
I could see any one of the four in that role. And for Travis, who do you see as playing Travis Weld?
Matt Damon would be great because he has this ability he can create almost any personality in a person. Daniel Craig could do it too, having been in James Bond. Chris Pine and Charlie Hunnam are possibilities. So, but Matt Damon would be my favorite. And of course, Jennifer Lawrence, I'd say, oh, that'd be fantastic.
That would be ideal. That would be the dream couple, the dream Chesney and Travis. We'll be watching to see how that unfolds and watching for future books. Our guest on the program, Robert Gallant, that's Gallant. The book we're talking about, the new one, a follow-up to Satan's Stronghold, is Jericho's Trumpet. It's available Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Information by going to our website and linking on thisweekinamerica.us. Robert, it is always a pleasure. The book is excellent. We learned something about the environmental issues that you're talking about, and we're also really entertained with the suspense thriller that is Jericho's Trumpet. Thank you so much for sharing that with us on the program today.
Rick, thank you very much for inviting me. You're just a great person for being able to spread information out to people and give them opportunities to say, ooh, there's something, I didn't know that existed. Let me go find that.
Well, you are an excellent author. It is always a pleasure to have you on the program. Once again, Robert Gallant. The book we're talking about is Jericho's Trumpet. It's available all across the country. And, of course, information available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Stay tuned. We're back after these messages.